Hello everyone. Today I will be discussing the prehistoric theory for Monster Hunter Wilds. Before I even dive deep into this, I want to lay down a few things. One, this is an unscripted video, so there are no scripts planned for this, so just remember that. This is also a discussion video, and the prehistoric theory is more of a fancy term for a title of a video. So it is going to be just a theory. It's not some kind of thing that's going to happen. We have no idea what's to come. So we just have to speculate most of the time. Now, let us begin. Oh, by the way, before I even continue, I have to, just mention this. I might stammer a lot. I might say some words. I might just cut in my own words, my own sentences. I might stop abruptly because it is unscripted. So yeah. All right. So now that we got this out of the way, I want to talk about what we saw in the Monster Hunter Wilds trailer. We saw a lot of monsters that are new monsters, and those new monsters look like relatives of monsters from older games. For instance, take those large fanged beasts that were running in herds. They look a lot like S.R.G. Or what about those monsters that look like that look very similar to Gorgots, or the Kestodon and Gastodon monsters, you know? Um, and you also have that small bird wyvern that the hunter was riding. A lot of people, and even I can see some resemblance to another small bird wyvern known as the Great Macaw. So it is interesting to see that so far the new monsters we've seen, well, most of them, I guess, they do take a lot of inspiration from older monsters. Now, we do know that in Monster Hunter, monsters can be related. There's major family trees. Many monsters are either far off cousins or close cousins. And, it's kind of interesting. There is Monster Hunter lore. Those who kind of go more deeper than just the gameplay, you will know that there's so much detail in each monster, and you can really tell how much dedication the developers have put into this game. That sentence did not make sense. I'm sorry. I'm not restarting this because I've said this a bunch of times. Okay. So yeah, they have a lot of dedication. Anyways, um, now I've seen a lot of these monsters, and I've noticed they look a bit more prehistoric. Now, what does this mean exactly? This could either mean two things. One, this takes place in the past, or this takes place on a land, on a specific, maybe island, maybe landmass that is kind of dangerous enough where the monsters have to evolve like wild, like more wild. If I'm not even making sense, the monsters have to be more wild because they evolved that way. They evolved to be more wild, which it just makes sense. I feel like the second theory makes more sense. This possibly is a new land, and all of the monsters, well, most of the monsters, because we do have Rathalos, and Rathalos looks the same. So yeah, but let's just say for the most part, most monsters in this specific land evolve to be a bit more wild. It's kind of like in real life where you have some animals in different countries. Some of them are more wild than their counterparts in other countries. That's just how life is. Things evolve differently, and things are going to behave differently because of that evolution. So I have a feeling that evolution is going to have, well, not really a major role. It is going to have a more major lore role. So those who dive deep into the lore, it's going to be more focused on that. Some of these monsters evolve to be much more dangerous, or some of these monsters were basically like monsters that were, let's just say, close to the original versions of those monsters, if that makes sense. Maybe these monsters are the original, maybe like For instance, Kestodon and Gastodon, maybe they derive from the monster we saw in the Wilds trailer. We don't really know. Maybe these guys are the original, So, that could be my third theory, but it's close to the second. But, you know, because technically that means that Kestodon and Gastodon evolved to be a bit more kinder and calmer. Okay. Now, I really disagree with the past theory because, it just wouldn't make sense. I mean, it would if they put it correctly, but it just would not make sense if Monster Hunter Wilds took place like thousands of years ago. It wouldn't make sense because we also have the Slinger and we have the Scout Flies. So yeah, that's pretty much modern technology for the new world. And now, okay, here's another theory in this. What if this also takes place on the new world, but on a separate part? Maybe it was more divided, maybe it's a more wilder territory. That's an interesting theory a lot of other people have, like this possibly takes place in the new world. Yes, I write like a computer. Okay, so there's so much to dive in, but where was I? See, this is what happens if I don't script my videos. Everything is just chaos. So I would say that regardless, they do look very prehistoric. And okay, let's just go over the monsters we have so far. First things first, we have this herbivore, which is the Gongo looking monster. It is a herbivore. Then you have the Kestodon and Gastodon type, which is also an herbivore. You also have those tiny bird wyverns. Those tiny bird wyverns, some would possibly say it's endemic life. Some will say it is just monsters. We don't really know what they're going to be classified as. So it makes more sense for them to be endemic life because they're way too tiny to hunt, and there's freaking plethora of them. So we just don't really know. What if they possibly are monsters? We don't really know. What if they're baby monsters? We don't know. Then you have the fanged beast that looks like Gossarock. That's a fanged beast. Then you have that windrake. I'm sure some of you guys may have seen in the background when they were showing the herbivores. You may have seen a flying creature near a tree. Now that could either be an endemic life, or that could be a new windrake. We are getting the Slinger. We are getting the Scout Flies back. With the Slinger, it makes sense to bring the windrakes back because we can then hop on them and they can fly us to different places. It's kind of fun. I know we have our new mount, but I don't know how far this mount can fly. We don't really know what's happening with this monster. Then we have Rathalos, which looks the same. I don't really see any changes with that. So maybe Rathalos is a monster that barely evolves because the monster Rathalos and Rathian are just more easy to adapt in many places. Maybe their form is easily adaptable. Then we have that small bird wyvern that looks like the great macaw that you ride. We don't really know all of these monster names at all. So yeah, we just have to assume so much on what they're going to be called. Anyways, going back to this theory, the prehistoric theory, these monsters look like obviously they are related, makes sense, but they just look more prehistoric. Even that windrake monster, the possible windrake monster, it looks very prehistoric, like an old dinosaur, So it kind of makes sense that it takes place in a different section of either the new world or a brand new environment that's close to the new world. Maybe, let's just say you have the new world, and then, it breaks off, and then there's a separate land where things have just been unexplored. Maybe it's just an unexplored land like the Guiding Lands, but just much more bigger. And the Sixth Fleet flocks to this place. and we then find out that these are possibly the original to Castellan and all the other stuff. But then, obviously, what about the Gone Goat monster lookalikes? And what about the S.R.G lookalikes? Because they aren't in, because S.R.G and Gone Goats aren't in World and Iceborne. So, who knows? Maybe this land is closer to all the other lands in Monster Hunter Rise. Okay. Enough joking around. I would say that it possibly is a land that maybe leads to other lands, or maybe this land was broken off. Okay, here's another theory to this prehistoric theory. What if this section of land broke off long ago? It broke off long ago, kind of how like Madagascar broke off long ago. Think about it like that. This land possibly was part of a major land, and then it broke off years ago, and this is why the land is basically very prehistoric. It never evolved, something like that. I have a feeling it could be like this. It's just a broken land. Yes, see, this is not a normal writing. Okay, to end it all off, I think this theory is kind of close. It's a broken land. I'm going with it. This, this new section we're going to hunt in, it possibly is a broken land, and it broke off from other sections, like other parts of the world, and since it was left alone, things were just kept how it is. Things did not really need to evolve that much, because why would it need to evolve when you're in a place where everything is fine? Like, okay, let's just say, I don't even know. Like, I know, things kind of like, okay, look, evolution is very hard to discuss. But if you think about it, the dodo evolved from some other pigeon or something like that, right? But that's because those birds flew in. They weren't originally native to the land at first. So that's the theory. But anyways, it'll make sense that if these monsters were native to the land and it broke off and it, the land floated away, and the monsters just remained the same because there was no need for them to change at all. There's no need for them to evolve or whatever, because many of the other monsters didn't change at all. They were still the same. If one thing stays the same, everything stays the same. You know what I'm saying? There's no need for it to change into something else. There's no need for it to change into this. It'll just remain this. Am I making sense? I hope I am making sense. Okay, I have to flip the paper over because there's so much scribbling, and even here too, I have like a lot of like a failed theory over here. So I have to do with this much space. So to round it all off, the prehistoric theory, I think, obviously it can go many ways, but I think the land drifting off makes more sense. It possibly drifted off from other sections of another continent, and then maybe it's a piece of land that is maybe close to the new world, but maybe not connected to the new world, if that makes sense. Maybe it's supposed to be connected to another world. And then, okay, so it drifted off, and there was no need for evolution. Because all the monsters on that land, we're just going to call it 2 because we don't really know what we're going to call it. All the monsters on this land were still the same. Nothing changed in them. They still had the same behavior. So, that's my theory. That's kind of my theory. That's why they're prehistoric. That's why they look prehistoric. Because of this, because the land drifted away. Or it's either a secluded land, so secluded that you somehow discover it in the next game, and you have to check into it. You're the first group of humans to go in it and check it out, and to discover why this land was so secluded from others. So it could also be a secluded, and there could possibly be an elder dragon reason. And even if the land drifted off, there could also be another elder dragon reason. Maybe it sliced the land into pieces. Okay, look, that's my theory. That's why the monsters look very prehistoric, and I have a feeling that many of the other monsters are going to look much more prehistoric. Maybe not all of them. I feel like Rathian and Rathalos will remain the same for obvious reasons, and it just makes sense that their bodies are more adaptable, because in every single Monster Hunter game, you find Rathian and Rathalos. What does that mean? It means that they're very adaptive. Their body type is very adaptive, so that's pretty cool. Anyways, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed this theory, leave a like and subscribe. And tell me if this theory is perfect. I'm sorry if there was so much of rambling and me running all over the place. It just doesn't feel so good when it's unscripted. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Anyways, bye.